Morning, everyone. I'm Tim, and the association exists to enable energy users from domestic through to industrial to participate in and benefit from the energy system. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think is important for what's happening in the for industrial and commercial customers, energy customers. The Clean Growth Strategy, I don't know how many of you have looked at it or even if you think it's relevant to you, but it is. And the reason it's relevant to you is because the first carbon budgets, 1 to 4, basically the targets could be met by changing broadly what we did on generation. A little bit on demand, a little bit of efficiency, but loads on generation. And the big thing that I'm sure you're all aware of is the fact that we're getting rid of coal, and the number of hours that coal is operating in the power system every year is falling. And it's the reason why the UK is one of the fastest decarbonising nations in the world. But when you get to the 5th carbon budget, which is what the Clean Growth Strategy is about, you're starting to get into deeper decarbonisation. And when you start to get into deeper decarbonisation, you actually have to start looking at the users and how the users are behaving. If you look at some of the chapters in the Clean Growth Strategy, you will see there's an entire section on business and there's another section, in fact, on industry. There's another section on EVs and decarbonising transport. And the word heat I looked up, look at that. The word heat I looked up appears over 180 times. Heat is a very local thing. You can't do heat hugely remotely from the end consumer. And then there's another section on smart power. They really don't want me to have this up. There's another section on smart power. So basically, if you look at all of the sections that you can see, I think bar one, in the Clean Growth Strategy, all of them relate to users. So if you're an energy user, the Clean Growth Strategy is going to start to bite. Okay, so let's see if we can, right, so just here's an interesting kind of, I've just pulled these out of the Clean Growth Strategy, just as some examples. 32% of emissions come from heat in buildings. This is another one. This is transport and how they're going to decarbonise transport. This one I think is really interesting. If you think about the fact that we currently have fleet managers in businesses for the vehicles, at which point is fleet manager and energy manager going to be the same thing? Because at some point, like as you move to electric vehicles, you're going to have a whole bunch of additional power demand and potentially power demand that you can return to the grid with vehicle-to-grid services. So at some point, the energy manager is also going to have a significant role in being the fleet manager. So that's the reason why the engaged user or the participating user is needed by government. Government really needs it. It cannot achieve its targets. Energy efficiency, that's another target in the Clean Growth Strategy. At least 20% from business and industry by 2030, and they reckon policy is going to get them to about 10%. So they've got half of their policy. They don't know how they're going to achieve it. So that's the first bit. By the way, I've only got a few minutes. So that's why government needs you. But at the same time, so everyone knows we need engaged users, we need users doing smart energy, we need them doing energy efficiency and changing the way in which they heat and power their businesses. But at the same time, this is a graph showing how much the UK's power transmission system is going to cost between 2015 and 2021. Doesn't really matter what the bars are, but the thing is that in 2014-15, it cost just under 2.5 billion a year. In 2021, it is 3.7 billion a year. What actually I haven't got is the graph that goes this way, back to 2010, when it was 950 million pounds a year. So the cost of our transmission network is going up very, very rapidly. And this is just a part of the system, okay? But the reason I'm telling you that is that traditionally, what has happened is if you do on-site generation and maybe storage and things like that, it was regarded as negative power demand. And what happens is if you take lots and lots of users, you basically see their on-site generation, if you see it as negative demand, your total use of the grid falls, your import falls, And the total amount of money that they get, this is a fixed amount. So if fewer and fewer people are paying for the grid, their bill goes up. Now, National Grid and Ofgem and others have seen this as an issue, and it is an issue. And so this world in which people could basically put on some on-site generation, like some CHP or some solar or something like that, and then just go, well, I'll just take the value that I can avoid buying my electricity from the grid, that you're going to start to see that get eroded over time. And what actually they're going to look for in the future is they're going to say, the only way that you are going to be rewarded is based on actually what you're doing in the short term and the medium term on the grid. So are you helping balance the grid? Are you helping avoid reinforcement? And not just in a sort of generic way, but in a much, much more precise way. So these two things, the fact that government on one side needs you to be a participant in transport, in heat and in power, and the fact that being able to do things like on-site generation and sit behind the meter and benefit from that world is going away. Those two things means that being an engaged energy user really is going to start to matter. And so if there are basically, imagine there's two types of energy user, this is being brief, but if you're a passive energy user, my expectation is that your bill will rise, and it will rise significantly, and it will start to have a bearing on competitiveness. If you are an engaged and an active energy user, then your bill will either rise but much more slowly, or the revenues that you can get from being an active participant will mean that you're able to reduce or certainly much better manage your energy bill. So in terms of what I was wanting to talk to you about is just the fact that I expect, and I've run through this super quickly, there's lots and lots of very, very complex detail beneath this, which if we really want to get into, we can in the panel. But the thing that I think that is worth taking away is the fifth carbon budget and changes the way in which we charge the grid mean that if you're an engaged energy user, you have an opportunity. If you're passive, you're going to start to become less and less competitive. Thank you very much.